Welcome to the Great Basin Seasonal Outlook for June through September 2019. Looking at the precipitation and temperature over the last 30 days, the temperature is on the left. You can see the temperatures have been largely below normal across much of the west and into the Midwest and parts of the southern plains. Over the southern part of the Great Basin, we've seen the temperatures most below normal, with temperatures anywhere from 5 to 8 degrees below normal, and temperatures a little bit closer to normal as you go further north up into central Idaho, with warmer temperatures up in the Pacific Northwest. Precipitation has also been targeted mainly towards the southern half of the United States, with the southern areas of the basin seeing precipitation above 200 or 400% of normal for the time of year over the last 30 days. Further north, we've seen precipitation still above normal even over southern Idaho into western Wyoming. Looking at the precipitation since the beginning of the water year of October 1st, 2018, and again we've seen this very wet pattern continue through the winter and through the spring across much of the west. The only areas that have been on the drier side have been western Washington and Oregon, but the rest of the west, including the Great Basin, has seen well above normal precipitation. Our current snowpack is also well above normal, as we did have some cold systems move through during the month of May, bringing us some low and high elevation snowfall. Current snowpack is above 400% of normal across much of the basin, and some areas even further above normal over parts of eastern Nevada into Utah. Further north, we're seeing near normal snowpack up over central Idaho. So with all this precipitation that has been plaguing the west over the last 6 months or longer, we have really no areas of drought across the Great Basin. We still do have some moderate drought that exists over parts of western New Mexico into northeast Arizona and over parts of the Pacific Northwest. But again, many of these areas likely will see improvement over the next couple of months, especially in the south. Looking at our latest fuel moistures, with this wetter weather, it's no surprise that our fuel moistures will be above normal for the time of year. 10-hour fuel moistures are very wet across all of the Great Basin, with the exception of parts of western Nevada, but again, this is still above normal for the time of year. 100-hour fuel moistures, we see a similar trend, and a similar trend in the 1,000-hour fuel moistures as well. We're seeing fuel moistures above 30%. Looking at some of our fire danger charts across the Great Basin, you can see this is for ERC. The green line shows the ERC values for this year. The dotted blue line are the ERC values for last year, and the gray line is our normal values for the last 10 years. You can see our ERCs this year obviously are well below normal for the time of year all across the basin. However, over parts of western areas of the Great Basin up into Idaho, these ERCs are similar to where we saw them this time last year. So now that we've looked at what's been happening currently and what has happened over the last 6 months, we can go into the outlook over the next couple of months. Looking first at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us into the middle of June, we'll likely see a return to some warmer temperatures across the Great Basin, but still this wetter pattern, especially over the eastern 2/3 of the area covering much of Nevada into the Arizona Strip and Utah. Now we'll take a look at what's been happening with El Nino. We've been in a very weak state of El Nino here over the last couple of months, and this trend, based on the forecast, looks like it will continue here through the summer and possibly even into the fall. These lines are all different forecast models, and they're in the area that's shaded in red for the most part, which shows that we will likely be staying in some version of a weak El Nino. What this means is just warmer sea surface temperatures off the western coast of Mexico over the equatorial Pacific. So we could see an increase in the tropical season over the eastern Pacific with these warmer ocean temperatures, and we'll also likely see a variable weather pattern that will take us at least into the earlier mid portion of the summer, which means better chances at storms moving through the Great Basin. So looking at the 1 month outlook, this takes us through the entire month of June. This is from the Climate Prediction Center, a branch of NOAA. We're still looking for that wet pattern to continue over much of the Great Basin, and will also continue further east into the Rockies and into the central and southern plains. If we look at the 3 month outlook, taking us from July through September, you can see generally a return to potential warmer temperatures in the west, but still that wet signature over much of the Great Basin, and that extends eastward across the central tier of the country. So again, we are looking for a better chance of showers and thunderstorms occurring across the Great Basin as we go through the rest of the spring and at least into the early to mid portion of the summer. This will likely bring us above normal precipitation, but also above normal lightning across the Great Basin. So this will lead to more fire starts across the area, but with fuels, if we see a lot of rainfall with these thunderstorms, if they stay a little bit higher in fuel moisture, that will reduce the potential for larger fire spread, and we might just get a lot of smaller fires, at least initially, across the Great Basin this fire season. So now that we've looked at all of that, we'll put everything together for the outlook for the next 4 months. So for June, we see generally this large area of below normal fire potential across Utah, eastern Nevada, and into southern Idaho, along with the Sierra and the Sierra Front. Again, we're looking at this moisture to continue, and also the higher elevations still have quite a bit of snow to melt. As we move into July, we will start to see the lower elevations potentially dry out a little bit, but we still will have a fairly variable weather pattern, likely at least through the mid portion of the month, so it will likely keep conditions generally normal across the Great Basin, with the exception of the higher terrain, which will still be below normal, and then we could see the potential of some above normal fire potential over the southern part of the basin as we go late June into July, when those areas traditionally would be quieting down due to moisture from the monsoon. The monsoon may be slightly delayed this year, which will allow for the potential for greater fire potential over the southern areas of the Great Basin as we move into July. As we move into August and September, right now we're just calling for normal fire potential, but that could change depending on the weather pattern, especially in the lower elevations. If we see drier weather materialize later in August and into September with warming temperatures, we could see the fire season certainly delayed and shorter than normal, but we could see it possibly extend later into August or September depending on the weather pattern. So we'll continue to monitor that. That concludes our seasonal webcast for this month. Check back at the beginning of July for the latest updates.